I woke up to this like orb, like I want to say this light that was shining through my tent, and I was pretty annoyed, to be honest, because I had no idea why there's this like luminant light coming through my tent and just annoying me. The second night, I was working down in Gardnerville, and it was a late night, and I ended up just driving back to camp. And it was around 2 in the morning. I was driving to the campsite, and I was listening to my music, and I turned to my left, and I see this ball of light going through the forest. I look at it, and it's like, oh, not a big deal. It's probably another car. And I just keep driving. But for some reason, I wanted to look again, and probably after a mile or two, I look again. The light is still just kind of following me, and it just goes up in the air. Okay, that's definitely not a car. And this big white ball light gets bigger, and as it gets bigger, there's this red little light that comes out of it, and it goes the complete opposite direction, like in a Y formation. So the white light goes up, the little red light goes towards the lake. And I said, oh shit. And that's when I completely forgot everything.
Hi guys, welcome back to the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure, as I always say, to be joined all around the world by so many like-minded people. I'm back out again. This is going to be another solo overnight wild camp here in this creepy woods. This is typically a hotspot here in the UK for strange reports of things like UFOs, extraterrestrials, weird cryptids, and even the paranormal. Now, if this is your kind of thing, then please do remember to click that like button, comment down below what your thoughts are during this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, share this content with other like-minded friends and family. Kick back, relax, and enjoy.
I was just driving down middle of the night, and I think it was like 1:30 in the morning, something like that. And I was out in what is basically kind of the panhandle of Oklahoma, probably doing 70, running with my high beams on, just like everybody does, headed home. I've been working. And all of a sudden, it just happened so fast. I almost hit this thing. It just flew right in front of my windshield. And whatever this thing was, it was huge. And it looked like a giant wing, of like a pterodactyl or a giant bat or something. And all I could really see was the wing. But this thing flew right in front of me. I'm driving a 3/4 ton van. You're talking about a big windshield. I mean, this thing is huge. And it literally swallowed all my vision. I couldn't see anything. And I figured that one wing alone was probably 8 foot wide. I mean, it was that big.
So I was driving along yesterday through the English countryside, beautiful scenery all around me, orange, amber leaves just falling to the road, very, very autumnal, I think that's a word. But as I've always mentioned, this is when my best thoughts just spring into my mind, or interesting thoughts, let's just say, interesting thoughts. And I started thinking about the cryptid phenomena yesterday while driving. And one of the leading questions that people have regarding Bigfoot, regarding dogmen, and a whole host of other cryptids that have been seen around the world is, why do we not see them on a daily basis? Why is it that I can track a wolf, a coyote, a bear, a leopard? I can track these animals. There's telltale signs on the ground, on branches, that will lead me right to where the animal is or has been. And if you do that for long enough, you will get a crystal clear sighting, not only on photo but on video. And hunters do this all the time to actually drag one in that can be tested. Yet we can't do that with a Bigfoot or a Dogman. And so the leading question in those fields is, why are they not being seen on a daily basis? Like, why are their numbers not as high as every other animal that they're sharing their environment with? And then it got me thinking, because some people believe that Bigfoot, Dogmen, and other cryptids as such possibly could be government experiments. Now stay with me, don't let me lose you at this point, because I am impartial to this theory. I neither believe or disbelieve. I just find it interesting. And that got me thinking, because if Bigfoot was created in a lab, whoever created this magnificent creature would have been able to manipulate the gestation period, the length of time that a creature stays pregnant or carries their young. An African grey elephant, for example, stays pregnant for 22 months. That's a hell of a long time to be carrying an unborn elephant around. And so this was my thought. If Bigfoot, if Dogman has an extremely long gestation period, say 2.5 years, 3 years, that would be a long enough time for that creature to survive, to maintain itself, but also keep the numbers down of that specific species. So sure, people will go out into the woods, they'll have an experience, they'll see the creature, and then nothing might come of that for the rest of their life. They may never have another experience ever again. Why? Because these creatures aren't just walking around in large numbers every single day. And the answer to that is because they're carrying their young around for 2.5, 3 years. Now, I'm not saying that that is what's happening. I'm just saying that that would explain why we don't see them in large numbers as frequently as any other animal sharing that same environment. You guys comment below and let me know what you think about this.
I heard something, so I quietly went out to the patio doors in the living room, and I looked out and I saw a dog. What I thought was a dog, it was big. I mean big. It was like, it looked like a great mastiff, or it had the body width of like a big bear. It was huge, and it had its head down, and I couldn't tell if it was actually eating it or just like sniffing around the trash, and it had its paws down. And I'm looking at this thing thinking, what the hell am I looking at here? It had really big ears, and what freaked me out at first was it turned one of its paws around like a human being to scoop something up to its nose. And I was like, holy crap, what kind of a dog does that? It looked up at me, and I noticed that it had really big ears too. And this thing had no fear. I mean, none whatsoever. It scared the bejesus out of me, I swear to God. And it proceeded to start to stand up, and when it did, I let out a holler. I mean, I screamed. Like, I screamed so hard, I had a sore throat for 2 days after. I let out a death scream.
Something that I've been asked a few times over the years, enough for me to want to sit here now and explain myself to you guys, is how I got involved with the outdoors. Because a lot of you here will know me from my bushcraft stuff, building shelters and tools. A lot of you will know me from my wild camping stuff, exploring different locations in the Lake District. Then a lot of you will know that I was in the Cub Scouts and the military. So it seems like I've lived a very outdoorsy type lifestyle. And so a lot of people want to know what intrigued me or what got me interested. And it's quite a funny story. But before I start, disclaimer, Mum, if you're watching, I'm sorry in advance. So, when I was growing up, me and my group of friends would tell our parents that we're all sleeping at each other's house, when in actual fact, we were all sleeping rough on the streets. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people here now that are laughing that can relate to this. It's just a thing that kids do. But we used to all sleep rough, and we used to walk around in the dead of night, freezing cold temperatures, middle of winter, on the streets, by choice. Like no circumstance or terrible situation landed us in that predicament. We just chose to do it because it was exciting and intriguing. And usually when we were walking the streets, the conversation would start off really giddy and excited. We'd all be laughing and telling jokes and pulling pranks on each other. But come about 12 o'clock at night, when it really started getting cold and the reality hits home that we haven't got a bed tonight, and this is us till at least 9 o'clock in the next morning, the conversation started to turn to how cold we were, where we're going to sleep. This was a big mistake. I'm going home. That's what a lot of the group would start saying. Come 2 o'clock in the morning, there was no conversation at all. Like, we just wasn't talking anymore. We were just walking around aimlessly, trying to find somewhere to sleep or keep warm. No conversation. And you learn a hell of a lot about yourself when you do that, because I did that. Out of that group of friends back then, I would say that I did that more than any of them. Like, you'd get one person out in a group, then they would never do it again. And, you know, maybe two from the last time we did it would come out, but then no more. I was nearly there every single time in the groups, walking around, sleeping rough. Why? I don't know. But I did. And yeah, you learn a lot about yourself. I learned that I could run extremely fast for long periods of time. I also learned that I was really, really good at making shelters out of almost anything and almost nothing. That was two things that I learned about myself. But when I say we was walking around, it wasn't always on the streets. Sometimes we was in the woods, the forest. Sometimes we was on the streets walking around. Other times we were climbing buildings to try and sleep on rooftops. So it was a very varied skill set that I learned early on. One time I even slept at the bottom of my garden, in our garden shed, on my brother's moped. Now that was a horrible night's sleep. Sat up straight, leaning across the handlebars. And I even pulled off the dust cover that my brother had left over his moped and wrapped myself up in that to try and keep warm. And that was mentally testing because I could see the house from the bottom of the garden. So nobody knew I was in this shed, middle of winter, freezing away. And I could see all them, my family, my mum, brother, dad, shutting off the lights, going to bed for the night in that nice cozy house. But again, this is something else you learn, is that, you know, in my naive mind at that age, it seemed like the worst thing ever to knock back on that door at 3 o'clock in the morning and explain to my mum what I'd done wrong. I would much rather have froze to death than do that. But yeah, that's just a weird mindset that you have when you're a kid. Knocking back on the door and explaining that I've lied wasn't an option. I would have much rather have stuck it out and froze to death than do that. Another thing worth mentioning is that back in those days, we never had mobile phones. So if the group ever got separated for whatever reason, then you was on your own. Like, you couldn't text your friend and say, oh, where are you? And I mean, Nokia 3210, whatever it was, came out years later, but at the time I was doing this with my group of friends, we didn't really have mobile phones. And believe it or not, the group got separated more than you'd probably ever imagine, for one reason or another. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Like, not living, but doing crazy stuff like that, sleeping rough. And I have so many stories. Now I'm thinking back to those times, I have so many stories that you guys would be like, oh my God, Ben, what was you thinking? Or, I can't believe that happened. Yeah, so many stories from that time period in my life. Yeah, I could go on forever. If you're interested in hearing any of those stories, then comment below, because I can share a few of them with you and it might blow your mind a little bit. I slept rough, just to give you an example of one of the stories. I slept rough on a school roof. This was without even a group of friends. This wasn't even me, you know, are we sleeping rough this week? Are we staying out all night? To my friends, this was just me doing it. And I don't know why I did this, but there was a part of the school roof where I slept on it, and I maybe slept on there in total about 5 times on my own. And then the 6th time that I'd gone back to the school roof and tried sleeping out on there was a letter on the roof asking me to move on. They obviously thought that I was homeless. whoever climbed up there, whoever put the letter up on the roof, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the caretaker or someone that lived locally and was watching me climb up there every night. I'm not sure. Well, it wasn't every night. It wasn't like I was doing this 5 nights in a row, because obviously my parents would have been suspicious. But over a period of time, it must have been about 5 or 6 times that I'd slept upon this roof. And there's way more stories to talk about on these adventures, and what I got up to, what I experienced, and what I learned along the way. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that really quickly. It was so interesting to see the response on my last video. Wow, the wind. That wasn't the response on the last video. Just saying, the wind is picking up. But yeah, it was so interesting and so good to see the response of everybody, because I felt like I was going crazy. Because I thought bear. A lot of you guys mentioned in the comments box, that looks like a bear, it runs like a bear. And I thought exactly the same. But obviously, common sense tells me that it can't be a bear. But then what the hell is it? Because it runs exactly like a bear. Some people have mentioned that it was a deer, but in all honesty, I've never seen a black deer. I've seen rusty coloured deers, I've seen beige coloured deers, browns, but never a black deer. And yeah, it was just a weird thing. And at some point in the video, I'm not sure if you've looked, if you look carefully and you scrub back and forth, there's a certain, I'm not just trying to say this, have a look for yourself and you be the judge. It looks like it stands on 2 feet for the first portion of the video, then falls down to all fours and starts running. When it drops from 2 feet down to what looks like all fours, it looks like it has an arm. Now, I wish I could try and screenshot this, and if I can, I will post the screenshot of what I think looks like an arm on the community post. That's the deal. But yeah, just bear that in mind, scrub it back to the beginning of the footage, and it looks like it takes a few steps on 2 feet, it leans forward, about to drop onto all fours, and at that point it looks like an arm. Not a paw, not any other thing, but an arm. That's the only way I can explain it. And people are saying dog, there's no tail. That didn't run like a dog, there was no tail for a dog. And if it was any kind of a small dog, you just wouldn't have seen it. That thing was big. You could see from the distance that I was, even on the video, that thing had size to it. It was huge. So I don't know. And that is the beautiful thing about getting out there and being someone that makes videos, is that I've always, 9 times out of 10, got my phone in my hand or looking out for things like that. So I don't know what it was, but it was nice to see the reaction of everybody. And a lot of you guys thought along the same lines as me as well, so I'm not going crazy, which is always reassuring. As you can see, guys, there has been a dramatic drop in quality on the video footage now, because we are in the late evening. There's about 30 minutes worth of decent light left, and then this whole place will just be cast into darkness. So I'm going to get a drink on, a warm drink. It's getting cold now. As you can see, I've got my coat on, and talk to you guys some more, because I feel like there's a lot that I want to speak about, and you guys seem to like that. You like to interact in the comments box, you like to hear what I've got to say, and I like it too. So as we absorb the night, as it starts to encroach on us, then I think the best thing to do is get comfy, make, like I said, a nice coffee, and just chill out talking. I don't believe it. I can't get any hot water on because I don't have a lighter to light the stove with. I've left my lighter back at home. So that means there's no hot water, no coffee for me, which sucks. But we'll have to just make do. I could have sworn that I put the lighter in here. Nope, no lighter. Oh boy, that sucks. I guess I'm just drinking water then. Have you ever been in the woods and everything just becomes deadly quiet? For years, I've heard people on podcasts and in interviews talking about their experiences in the woods and how everything just became deadly quiet. And looking back, when I heard these people saying this, I always assumed that, you know, what they meant was just that the animals quietened down, but there was still, you know, noises to be heard. And then I experienced it for myself, and it was the most weirdest feeling that you can imagine. Like, because when I'm talking about quiet, deadly quiet, there wasn't a breeze, there wasn't a chirp of a single bird, nothing, not a rustle of a leaf. It was the weirdest sensation. It was almost like I'd been stuck inside a vacuum, or it was almost like the portion of woods that I was in, somebody put a big glass jar over it and sucked all the air out, created this vacuum of nothingness, like just deadly silent. It was so weird. The first time I ever experienced it was actually caught on video on I think that's Lily coming back. She's gone for a wander, but she'll be back. She always does. Anyway, yeah, the first time I experienced it was in the woods, obviously, and I mentioned on video, because I was recording at the time for the channel, that everything had just really gone weird, like deadly quiet. And then the next thing, I almost fell to the floor because everything started shaking. The tree started shaking, the floor was moving, and there was this sound, this rumble. It was like the loudest thunder that you've ever heard, rolling across the sky directly above me. And I was just thinking it was the end of the world. Honestly, my heart was beating out of my chest. What was that? I think we've just experienced an earthquake. And I didn't have a clue what was going on, but it turns out that the first time was an earthquake. There was a huge earthquake that had been triggered somewhere. I can't exactly remember where it was, like the epicenter. But the birds and everything around the area knew at least a good 2-3 minutes before I heard any rumbling, before any movement of the ground started happening. Everything in that woods knew a good 2 to 3 minutes before. It was the weirdest thing. Like, people always talk about animals and how they have this sixth sense. They can pick up on things that are about to happen. I truly believe that now, because it was fascinating and weird and creepy all at the same time. But those animals in that wood definitely knew that something was inbound. When you guys see me like this on camera and there's quite a bit of light, you know, I've got this light off to my side and this one held in my hand, it looks comforting. It looks really nice, and you know, I've got some comfort in having these lights next to me, but just beyond the camera and all around me, 360 degrees, it's pitch black. I know you can see the light coming through the trees above me, but that is because the camera is working overtime just to pick up that faint little bit of light. I can't see behind this camera right now in front of me. I know there's trees there, I know it goes further off into the woods, but I can't see it. Can't see anything. And what makes it worse is that the lights are on and they are in my face, so my eyes have adjusted to absorb that light, which obviously now makes my nighttime vision poorly affected. Like, if I look around now, I can't see anything for a good half a minute until my eyes adjust again. I hope you guys are okay wherever you are in the world watching this video right now. Maybe you're in the safety of your own living rooms, maybe you're on vacation, maybe you're out in the woods yourself doing some camping. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate all the support that you guys give me. And I know it seems crazy because you're all pretty much the majority of my fan base is across seas, in many different countries around the world. But talking to the camera, it makes me feel like you guys are here with me. And I know that's crazy. I know that that's not the case. Obviously, if anything was to happen to me, I'd be here on my own to defend myself with no help from anyone. But knowing that this video will reach thousands of people, and some of those people may have had experiences, some of those people may, long to do what I'm doing, and they may have had that taken away from them for one reason or another. Many people who have these experiences with something life-changing never go back into the woods, and the only way that they can is through people like myself. So I understand the responsibility that I've got to be authentic, genuine, down to earth, respectful of these topics, because I don't believe everything I talk about, and I've spoke about this on the channel many times before. One of the things that I was thinking about this today. One of the biggest things that I would like to pat myself on the back for is the fact that from the very beginning I came out and I told everybody, one, I don't believe everything that I talk about. There's certain aspects to these subjects that I don't believe, but I would never ridicule them. I would always take them seriously, and I wouldn't put any less effort into investigating those things just because I don't believe them. Because I do know that there are very, very strange things sharing this dimension and many other dimensions, on this planet. So, yeah, that was something that I was really proud of myself for doing, for being openly honest about that. And it's the same with you guys as well. Watching this, I'm sure that a few of you might believe one thing, but not something else. It's just natural, it's human instinct. We shouldn't believe absolutely everything, but we should be open to absolutely everything. And another thing as well is that, I've always been honest about my thumbnails. From the very beginning, I always said, listen, don't take me on face value of how I create my thumbnails. Because for me, let me explain this. The YouTube algorithm is a very big, nasty machine. And this machine, this organization, this company, wants to maintain its longevity. And the way it does that is by keeping people on the platform of YouTube. How does it do that? How does it keep people on YouTube? Well, through content creators creating clickbait thumbnails. You imagine all these clickbait thumbnails that draw in millions and millions of views. YouTube, the algorithm, promotes that video because it's keeping people there. It's bringing people in. It sees the interest and it thinks, oh, hang on a second. People are liking this video, and we want people to like videos because that's what we do. So let's promote that above all the other videos on that subject. That's why I was telling you this, because I've always been openly honest about this. I have to make thumbnails that look enticing, interesting, thought-provoking, because I want to be promoted by the algorithm. Not because I want to dupe anybody, because that's not what I'm doing. In fact, it's the opposite. I'm telling you guys why I do the thumbnails in the way that I do them. You see, in the early days, I had people saying, oh, it's clickbait, and I'm not clickbait. If I do put something in my thumbnail, you can guarantee that it will be in the video to some degree. Sometimes it might be over-exaggerated, sometimes it might be blown up in like with the wording that I use. Like I use words that are really hook-based. They hook people in, like terrifying and oh my God, and this is just common sense. And if anyone is hurt by this, then I apologize, but we need to wake up. That's how YouTube works. What I really, really pride myself on, though, is what you guys receive once you're in the video. Forget the thumbnail. Me as a person being authentic, coming across to you guys, that is what I want to sell. So I couldn't care less whether I make my thumbnails clickbait. That's just for the purpose of me trying to grow the channel. And why would I not want to grow the channel? I'm not here to waste my time. I want to be the biggest in this field, talking about these things. And like I've always stated, I want to try and make a full-time living out of the passion that I've got for strange phenomena. And that's why I do the thumbnails the way I do them. But, as I've mentioned, I know me as a person. I know that once you've got into the video and you look past the thumbnails, I'm a decent guy, I'm authentic, original, and yeah, that's all I pride myself on, is being relatable to people, being a source of a source of safety, like a place where people can come speak. That's what I wanted this channel to be about from the very first day that I started it, and I think we've achieved that. I really do. I think that there's plenty of people here opening up with experiences that they've had that maybe even close family members don't even know about. So I love the position I'm in. I love the fact that so many people are entrusting in me with their stories, and long may it continue. I often think about my experiences growing up. I often think about living in the house that I grew up in, that tormented me for years, with paranormal activities taking place. And every time, because we all do have these moments where we start not to disbelieve, but we slip off the radar a little bit with how involved we are. Like, I go through peaks and troughs. Sometimes my interest is really, really high, and I'll be watching everything that I possibly can on the subject. I'll be listening to all the podcasts. And then other times you'll find that I maybe don't listen to anything for a month or 2 or 3. I don't speak to anybody about the subjects, and that's just how it goes. Everybody here will be able to relate to that. But when you've had an experience with anything, whether it be cryptid, UFOs, the paranormal, you can't deny what you experienced. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the subject all the time or you've lost interest. Going back to that time, that moment in time where you had the experience, you can't deny it. I can't deny what I saw, what I experienced growing up in the house. It doesn't make any logical sense. You know, it's not like the older you get, the more you look back with logical explanations and disprove these things. It doesn't work like that. Like, even now, all these years later, there's nothing that I can think of that would make logical sense to what happened in that house. Nothing. And as you get older, you start thinking about death more as well. You do. You start thinking about, like, where we go after this life, if there is anything after this life. And that kind of baffles me. It blows my mind a little bit, because I don't know, but I should know, if you know what I mean. Like, I can't sit here right now and say, well, I know that there's an afterlife just because I've experienced the paranormal. I don't know what the paranormal is. I don't know if the paranormal is something coming from the afterlife. And so it leaves you in this very horrible predicament where the more I think about, like, leaving this planet and where I might be heading, or if there is an afterlife, if there is a heaven, if there is a hell, I get conflicted. Part of me strongly believes that there is because of things I've experienced. But then the other part of me, like the little devil on this shoulder, is saying, you don't know what you experienced. You experienced something weird, otherworldly, but does that mean that it's a place you'll be going when you die? We don't know, and I hate that. I hate not knowing in anything in life. You know, I can't stand not to know. I lie awake at night, just to give you an insight into how my mind works. I lie awake at night. I could have turned the lights off, rolled over to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, I want to know what the deadliest animal on the planet is. I want to know, like, how fast a badger runs, or how deep the Mariana Trench is. This is what I do. Like, I need to know everything. And it's just a weird feeling to think that we'll never even come close. Like, it's not, we can't comprehend half of what our universe or world around us has to produce. Like space, for example. You can speak to the most knowledgeable person about space, and he won't even know 1% of what there is to know. It's mind-blowing. And I've just gone off on a tangent. I don't know what that whole point was based around or what it was supposed to be about, but I like doing that. I like just spewing out thoughts as they come into my head and touching on things that I've recently been thinking about. Because if I don't, then they get lost. They get lost to time. You know, I have some really fascinating thoughts while I'm making a coffee in the kitchen, or, like I've just said, going to bed. and being able to put them on video where they'll live forever. I like that. I don't know why I like that. I just do. I like the idea that that thought is down on record somewhere and it's not just floating around in the ether, lost forever.
You know, it was about 3:00 in the afternoon, and I was walking through this forest, these big woods. And basically, I just stopped to sit down and smoke a cigarette. And I was looking at this old tree, and this tree was like twisted and all gnarled and old and different looking from all the other trees. So I was staring at it for quite some time, and then all of a sudden I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was this translucent, but you could see the outline of it, this massive creature just jumped down from the tree, but invisible. You could see the trees through it, just jumped down and started walking away. And I was thinking, what on earth am I seeing? You know, I've never seen anything like this before. It was just absolutely, my heart skipped a beat. I just couldn't believe it.